to this comic thrill. Comics read along, let's begin. With comics that it's more than a win.
Hey everyone, Comics Dad here, and welcome to Comics Read Along. This is our first episode, and it's going to be a really special one. My favorite comic book character has always been Spider-Man, so I figure what better way to kick it off than to share one of my favorite Spider-Man stories with you. And today's story is Amazing Spider-Man 50, Spider-Man No More. This was originally published in July of 1967, written by the one and only Stan Lee, and the art penciled by the one and only John Romita Sr. And this is just an iconic cover. I mean, just look at the artwork. It's beautiful. It's fantastic. It just jumps out, and it's just so iconic and so memorable. And especially you read that tagline at the bottom, Spider-Man No More. It makes you wonder what's going to happen, especially for somebody that's not familiar with Spider-Man. The very first time I came across this particular issue was about maybe 15 years ago. Unfortunately, it wasn't an actual first print, but I came across somebody who had, whether it was a second print or some sort of a reprint, or maybe it was something that they had done their own scan of and put it together as some kind of pirated offshoot copy of it. I don't know, but I read it and I loved it because it just really hit home who Peter Parker is as a person and what drives him and why he is Spider-Man and why he does what he does as the Amazing Spider-Man. It's a great story. I can't wait to read it with you all, so let's dive right in. Okay, Amazing Spider-Man, issue 50. Spider-Man No More. And there he is. Classic Spidey doing Spidey things. Stopping the bad guys. Saving the people of New York City. You gotta love it, especially with that action scene. The colors, the line work. It's just fantastic. They definitely don't make them like they used to. Let's say we skip any long introductions. If one glance doesn't tell you where this little caper's at, then turn in your web shooter on the way out. Pretty much, I think that's just alluding to, like I said, Spidey doing Spidey things, just saving people in New York City. And there they are, Stan the Man Lee, Johnny Rangading Romita, and even a little shout out to the original inker and letterer, Mickey Demio and Sam Rosen. Spidey in the middle of standing off with these bad guys. I'm surprised at you gents. Don't you know better than to try robbing an office in Spidey swinging territory? You masked creep, you ain't gonna stop us, not unless you're bulletproof. And bulletproof you ain't. He flipped himself back. You missed him. Sorry about that. Come on, our only chance is to rush him. All together now, let's pile on. This'll take care of him. He's going down, we got him. Here's where we demolish the creep. I hate to shatter your pipe dream, guys, but us Spider-Men don't demolish that easy. Now, I don't want you to think I'm getting bored or anything, because you're a real swinging fun group, but I'll have to wrap this tea party up now. Don't think it hasn't been a real pleasure waltzing around with you. Just getting their butts handed to them by Spidey. Classic. Although, just between us kids, it hasn't been. Excuse this door, gents, but I've got to save my webbing, especially since they've raised its price at the corner drugstore. Man, even back in '67, inflation was hitting hard, huh, Spidey? Can't even afford his web fluid. Spider-Man, you've saved our payroll and perhaps our lives. How can we ever thank you? Easy, Martha. Stay back. How could we be sure he isn't as bad as the others? The Daily Bugle says he's a menace. Don't come any closer to us. You could stop trembling, Tiger. I don't bite. Boy, Jameson's baddie editorials have done me more harm than all the crooks in town. No matter what I do, half the population is scared stiff of me, and the other half probably thinks I'm some kind of full-time nut. Well, who cares what people think anyway? That's just the trouble. I care. Everyone flips over the Fantastic Four. They think Daredevil's the coolest. Captain America turns him on, but just mention Spider-Man and Freezeville. I'll never understand how it happened. I don't steal candy from babies or tie tin cans on puppy dogs. It's all Jameson's fault. He got the public convinced that next to me, Genghis Khan was a piker. The public, the more I help them, the more they hate me. Minutes later, reaching his apartment in the brooding youth, finds another cause for concern. Mrs. Watson called earlier. It's your aunt. She's ill. You want me to drive you there, Pete? Aunt May. That means she needs me. I'll take my bike, Harry. It's faster. And, yep, that's exactly who that is. That's early Harry Osborn. At this point, Harry and Peter are living together while Peter attends Empire State University. I just pray I'm not too late. Aunt May must have had another attack, and I was too busy playing superhero to be there when I should have. Mrs. Watson, I got here as fast as I could. What happened? It's all right, Peter. She's resting now. Luckily, the doctor was just passing by. If not for that... Where is she? Can I see her? She kept calling for you, wondering where you were. She was so worried. But then Dr. Bromwell managed to give her a sedative. If I had been at home, like any other normal guy, they could have reached me fast. But no. I was out flexing my muscles, trying to help the very people who fear me. We'd better let her sleep, Peter. I'll tell her you were here. Try not to be too far from the phone till your aunt is back on her feet, son. I will, Mrs. Watson, and thanks for looking after her. If anything had happened before I could have reached her, I'd never forgive myself. Ever since I moved in with Harry, I've hardly even thought about Aunt May. After all, why should I care about her? All she ever did is spend a lifetime looking after me, treating me like her own son. That's all. She devoted most of her life replacing the mother that I never had. And I show my gratitude by never being there when she needs me. I've got a rough exam tomorrow, but there's no use trying to study. I'd never be able to concentrate. Not now. The next day, at the conclusion of the test. Anything wrong, Pete? I hardly saw you write a thing. If I passed, it'll be a miracle. Parker, would you mind remaining a few minutes after class? I'd like to have a word with you. Sure, Professor Warren. Just a friendly warning, son. Your grades have been declining steadily. You came to this class with the finest record in science I've ever seen. I just hope you don't feel you can just coast along on that. No, sir. I'm going to start buckling down. Oh, Peter, I'm having a little get-together at home tonight. I'd love you to be there if you can. I've been waiting for Gwen to ask me, but with Aunt May so ill and my grades so low... Gee, I'm sorry, Gwen. Would you mind if I take a rain check instead? Of course not, Pete, though I am disappointed. And at this point in Amazing Spider-Man, if I'm correct, Peter's been pining after Gwen Stacy, but he's also had his flirtatious encounters with Mary Jane as well. Me personally, I've always been more of a Gwen Stacy fan than a Mary Jane Watson fan. If we ever get to the issue in the future, Gwen Stacy got the raw end of the stick, if you ask me. I'm probably the only one who will have to refuse her invitation, all because of the complications Spider-Man creates in my life. I haven't even had time for dating scatterbrained Mary Jane these days. Or is she really so scatterbrained? I've never been able to take the time to find out for sure. So long as I hang on to my Spider-Man identity, I haven't have time for anything, except new problems. All the way home, the troubled youth's thoughts keep tumbling torturously in his brain until Harry's dad offered me a job working in his chemistry lab. A job I'd give my eye teeth for. But I've even had to turn that down because it would involve a lot of night work, and I've got to keep my evenings free in case Spider-Man has to go into action. Spider-Man. I'm beginning to hate the very sound of that name. But hate it or not, no sooner does he turn on the TV than that sobriquet continues to haunt the brooding adventurer. Maybe if I hear the news for a while, Oh no. And my newspaper challenges anyone to prove that Spider-Man isn't a public enemy. It's Jameson again, using the show he sponsors to stir up people against me. Some misguided fools call him a superhero, but why does he operate outside the law? Why does he cloak his identity behind that ugly fright mask? Let me tell you why. Because he's really an egomaniac, a neurotic troublemaker flaunting his power before the ordinary citizens, whom he despises. For all we know, he himself provokes the criminals, whom he later seems to defeat. Do we want our youngsters to make an idol of a mentally disturbed menace? I say no. We must find him, unmask him, and then destroy him. As publisher of the Daily Bugle, I offer $1,000 for the capture and conviction of that web-slinging, wall-crawling mockery of a man. $1,000 reward, just for me. He hates me far more than I thought. The time has come to rid ourselves of that false-faced freak who hides by day and tries to take the law into his own hands under the cover of night. The terrible thing is, he means it. He actually believes what he says. He sincerely thinks I am a threat to society. But what if he's right? How can I have been so blind, never to have realized? Perhaps only a madman would do what I do, taking the risks, accepting the dangers. And for what? After all these years, it's suddenly clear. I must be a glory-hungry fool, or worse. Like a man in a trance, the heartsick youth leaves his apartment, trudging listlessly through the night, his thoughts as dark and stormy as the skies above him. Being Spider-Man has brought me nothing but unhappiness. In order to satisfy my craving for excitement, I've jeopardized everything that really matters. Aunt May, my friends, the girls in my life. And for what? Can I be sure my only motive was the conquest of crime? Or was it the heady thrill of battle, the precious taste of triumph? The paranoid thirst for power, which can never be quenched? May heaven forgive me. The more I think of it, the more I feel that Jameson was right. In which case, for the sake of my own sanity, there's only one thing left to do. I was just a young, unthinking teenager when I first became Spider-Man. But the years have a way of slipping by, of changing the world about us. And every boy, sooner or later, must put away his toys and become a man. That's heavy stuff. It really is. The first time I read that, obviously I had read other later issues of Spider-Man before I came across this issue for the first time, but it definitely had me thinking and wondering when exactly Peter would come back to being Spider-Man. If it was a short stint, or if it would be months, or maybe even a year. But it definitely leaves somebody wondering. It's just a shocking revelation on Peter's end that he decided to hang up being Spider-Man. And I know, for my little one who loves Spider-Man almost as much as I do, when she eventually reads this one day, she's gonna be just as shocked as I was the first time I read this. Anyway, moving on. No, despite what you may think, our tale is not yet ended. For the very next morning... Hold it! Stop! You can't go in there! Wait, that's Mr. Jameson's private office. Maintain your cool, lady. When he sees what I've got here, he'll give you a medal. Hey, Jameson, open up! This is your lucky day, mister! Miss Brandt, since when do you let punk kids come barging into my office? I'm sorry. I couldn't stop him. He raced right past me. Hold it! Before you blow a gasket, look at what I found in a trash can. What do you think this is? A garbage collection agent? Hey, wait! Come here! Let me see that! It's a costume. It's that wall-crawling weasel's costume. I'll be hanged if it isn't. It looks like the real McCoy. And if you found it in a trash can, it can only mean one thing. Don't just stand there, Miss Brandt. Get me the city desk. And I mean now. Yeah, you heard me right. I'm holding it now. Put out an extra. Splash it across the front page. You rate a reward, kid. Grab a free copy of the Bugle on your way out. That's a reward? Alas, we will never know whether our disillusioned youngster ever took his free copy or not, for we now leap ahead to the next morning. How about that? They found his costume in a trash can. That web-slinging wonder wouldn't ever quit. Someone must have beaten him. I'll believe it when I see it. Jameson will print anything to sell his paper. I don't get it. Maybe it's just a gag. Every copy I printed sold out. This is the scoop of a lifetime. After all these years, I finally got some good out of that masked misanthrope. Everything's coming up roses. But if something happened to Spider-Man, why didn't the police make an announcement? We don't know any more about it than you. But we're starting an investigation now. Is it true, Mom? Is it true? Let's hope not, Joey. Needless to say, it doesn't take long for the TV networks to cover the biggest human interest story of the year. I'll give the folks a close-up view of it, Johnny. Let's not forget to mention that it was my Daily Bugle that first published the news. As a public service, of course. We're offering a bargain subscription rate right now. Suppose we get the conversation back to Spider-Man, Mr. Jameson. Naturally. You don't think I was trying for a free plug, do you? Oh, perish forbid. In fact, on just about every major channel, the subject is the same. Do you feel that the human arachnid's proclivities preclude the possibility of this being merely a monumental bit of chicanery? I'd rather not answer that, David. Because of its impossible impact on our viewers? No, because I don't understand the question. What do you gentlemen think the answer is? It's obvious to me that the underworld has finally done away with him. Speaking as a psychiatrist, I feel he has suffered a schizophrenic withdrawal from reality. Or to couch it in layman's terms, he's out of his tree. And amongst the highest echelons of the underworld, The reaction is equally fast and far-reaching. This is the moment we've been waiting for. With Spider-Man gone, my plans can now reach fruition. Tell the boys to start spreading the word. I want every mob in the city to know the Kingpin is ready to take over. Will do, Kingpin. We'll have a summit meeting that'll make Appalachian look like a tea party. As the long, fateful hours tick by, one man becomes increasingly aware of a new mood among the city's criminal element. Something's in the air. I can see it. Feel it. I can almost reach out and touch it. Mobsters who wouldn't be caught within miles of each other. Deadly enemies are meeting and whispering. Whatever it is, that's in the wind. One thing's for sure, it's something big. And it won't be long before Patch the stool pigeon finds out what's going on. Hold it, punk. Where do you think you're going? This isn't your territory, so take a powder. Hey, what gives, Blackie? You know me, it's old Patch. I just want in on the action. Not this time, small fry. Go on back to picking pockets. You're out of your league here. Don't make him tell you twice, creep. I was right. Some of the biggest mobsters in the East are getting together. And they're not doing it just because they're lonely. I'd better take off and make my own plans before they get suspicious of me. And as the thoughtful Stoolie slowly fades into the deepening shadows, with Spider-Man gone, the Kingpin is ready to take over as head man of the mobs. Any questions? Why don't he tell us himself? I don't deal with stooges. Relax, Shorty. You know the Kingpin likes to stay in the background. If anyone is gonna take control around here, the Kingpin's our boy. Up to now, I always been my own boss. I don't like it. Then start liking it, mister. What the Kingpin says around here goes. While in a small furnished apartment on the other side of town, I don't have to be a genius to figure out what's going on. Spider-Man helped to keep the underworld on the run. They were disorganized, fearful, cautious, but now it's different. With the web slinger out of action, they're ready to pool their forces. Judging by the ones I've seen, it could be the most powerful army of crime ever assembled. And since somebody will have to lead them, why couldn't it be the man called Patch? Not a man alive knows that I'm really Frederick Foswell. The next morning. As Foswell, I'm just a 2-bit reporter, but if I could become the king of crime once again... Hey, Foswell, come here, I want to show you something. Now that I've gone straight, everyone trusts me. They'd never suspect. Yes, sir, Mr. Jameson. Remember when J. Jonah Jameson gave Foswell a job after his parole? He had been known as the big man, till Spidey caught him. Super memory Stan. Just a little note there from Stan Lee himself. Now it's commonplace amongst long-form comics to throw notes from previous issues just to get people up to speed, but it's good to see it early on. How do you like it? It's the greatest trophy a man could have, and it's all mine. Now I want you to follow up the Spider-Man story. Get all the leads you can. You've got company, JJ. Can I see you a minute, Mr. Jameson? Say, what's that doing here? What does it look like it's doing? It's on display, just like some masterpiece in a museum. I never managed to catch that weak-kneed webhead, but I did the next best thing. I got his costume for a trophy. Well, don't just stand there. I haven't time for every empty-headed juvenile that barges in. Parker probably knows as much about Spider-Man as anyone. The way he managed to get all those exclusive action photos of him. I'd better turn away. Can't let them see I'm too interested in the costume. I just came by to tell you not to expect any more pics from me. I'm gonna study. Be good, like a college Joe should. No, you can't quit. You were the best photographer I ever had. Then why didn't you ever pay me top rates? I didn't want to spoil you. Parker quitting at the same time as Spider-Man seems to be out of action. Is it merely coincidence, or... I've been betrayed, stabbed in the back. After all I've done for you, you're deserting me. I was like a father to you, gave you the benefit of my wisdom, my kindness, warmth, and friendship. And now you prove that it doesn't pay to be a living doll. Nice guys always finish last. They do? Then simmer down, Skinflint. You'll never have to worry. But even as we carefully tied the loose ends of our titanic tale together, a sudden serious outbreak of crime begins to plague the startled city. You guys must be nuts. You can't get away with a hijacking. Not in broad daylight. When the Kingpin wants a truck hijacked, we do it, Mac. Now climb on out of there. You gonna pay me that protection money? Or should I tell the Kingpin you refused? No, I'll pay. Everything went off perfect, just like the Kingpin planned it. Yeah, the cops can't be everywhere. And with Spider-Man gone, our job's a lot easier now. Not long afterward, the brooding Kingpin receives a special effort. Most of the boys got themselves nabbed by the cops, boss. But it was worth it. We found out what you wanted to know. It looks like Spider-Man really is out of action. He didn't show up nowhere, at no time, no how. Good. It was worth losing a few petty hoods to make certain. This means the time has come to proceed with my master plan. Instead of many rival gangs operating haphazardly throughout the city, instead of countless crooks acting alone without a chance against the police, the underworld will now be run like a business, and the chairman of the board will be the Kingpin. And I failed to mention it earlier, but that's right, the actual Kingpin himself is our big surprise guest in this issue. Amazing Spider-Man number 50, I believe, is the first appearance of the Kingpin ever in Marvel Comics. So, pretty exciting there, and I love how his design hasn't really changed too much over the years, especially with who Marvel currently has portraying the current Kingpin in live action. Vincent D'Onofrio, I believe. He's a perfect Kingpin, and honestly, you just look at this compared to him, and they pretty much got it spot on. I'm glad they haven't touched the design in 60 years. The next day at good old ESU. The police sure had their hands full lately. I wonder what really happened to Spidey. Do you think someone polished him off? He's in mothballs with the other relics, and he's gonna stay there. Hi, Gwen. Can I give you a lift? Move over, Mr. P. You've found yourself a pigeon. Just got a letter from our swingin' soldier boy. Fearless Flash? Let's see. At this point, Flash Thompson has been serving in the military. He's the same old howlin' hotshot. He gives the VCs 24 hours to clear out when he gets there. If anyone else scribbled that, we'd call him a great little kidder. But since it's Flasharoo, they'd better start packing. He really turns you on, doesn't he, Gwen? Gotta love the language they used in the 60s. Definitely some choice words and catchphrases that have kind of died out over the years. Sounds kind of odd to us nowadays, but it's humorous. Face it, classmate. How many blushing blondes would find a hip, handsome football hero totally repulsive? I'm sorry I asked, pretty girl. How was the party? A disaster area. Without you. You know, I kind of wish you meant that. Oh, you lovable blind goof. Can't you see I do? And this just hints at more the eventual blossoming, budding relationship between Peter and Gwen Stacy that'll come to pass in the future. And as I said previously, personally, I prefer them as an item instead of Peter and Mary Jane. Just a personal preference. Thanks for the lift, neighbor. Anytime, princess. Man, if only I had a chance in her league. A fella could sure sail through life with a gal like that to come home to. Then, 2 ounces of gasoline later. Aunt May, you're sitting up. You're better. Gosh, that's terrific. Is there anything you need? Anything I can get you? But don't ask for Cary Grant. He's out of town. Oh, Peter, dear, you always cheer me up so. I told you he'd be right here after class, May dear. Quick, someone call the beauty parlor. It's an emergency. A living, breathing male walked in and didn't notice me. I'm a washout, a has-been. It's the utter end, friend. Oh, hi, Mary Jane. I didn't know you were here. Obviously, Dad, or you'd have arrived even sooner. Well, it's your loss, Tiger. Have to cut out now. I'm late for rehearsal. Knock 'em dead, lady. With these new threads Aunt Anna just stitched for me, how can I miss? Now, I don't know really the lingo from back then, as I said before, but I'm not sure if her calling Peter Dad was a misstep and possible typo by Stan Lee, or if she was being sarcastic or facetious. Not sure. Kind of an odd choice of word there, but moving on. If your wheels are pointed in the right direction, PDO, this could be your lucky day. Sorry, MJ. I'd better stay with Aunt May for a while. No sweatin', nice boy. Finally, as twilight begins to fall, I feel like $1,000,000. No more worries. No more problems. I should have kissed Spidey off long ago. No more guilt feelings about Aunt May, and I'll have plenty of time to study tonight. Yep, this is the life, all right. I never had it so good before. It'll be a pleasure to know what they're talking about in class. Wonder if Gwen will notice the difference. But even as the seemingly retired superhero luxuriates in his room, business goes on as usual throughout the city. Faster, Mac. We ain't got all day. But this money is for welfare. Yeah, the Kingpin's welfare. Now shut up and keep loading that case. A West Side welfare office has just been robbed of its total cash allotment, destined for the city's needy. A robbery on the West Side? If that money isn't recovered, what happens to relief payments this month? Handicapped people, old people, helpless infants will be the sufferers here. And they don't have bank accounts to fall back on while waiting for help. The police may already have picked up the trail of the rats who pulled that job, but just in case. Hey, Parker, hold it. Chowderhead? You just took the pledge, remember? Your web-slinging days are gone forever. Simmer down, sweetie. You can read all about it in the paper. And simmer down he does, though every instinct within him longs for the thrill of adventure once again. But then, the next morning... Say, Pete, did you read about the welfare office robbery last night? Huh? Oh, no, I just had time for the sports pages. Gotta change the subject to keep my mind off crime. Looks like we're in the middle of a full-fledged underworld invasion. How's your dad, Harry? You haven't mentioned him lately. Haven't seen him. He's been out of town. Have you thought any more about his offer? About working part-time in his lab? As a matter of fact, I have, Har. I just have to finish some personal matters first. Soon as Aunt May is on her feet and my studies are up to snuff, I'm gonna do it. Thus, after all these years, things start looking up for our harassed hero. Or do they? How about a soda, sandwich, and spin after class, woman? Love it, man. But I have a date with Harry tonight. You two aren't pinned or anything, are you? First Flash, now Harry. You're always trying to pair me off. How come you haven't asked if I've got a mad crush on a bashful, black-haired bike rider? Come on, we both know nice guys finish last. Forget it, lady. You said it, Pete. I didn't. If only I had thought that Gwen meant... Hello, Peter dear. I feel so much better that Anna and I are going to the movies. Oh, Aunt May and Mrs. Watson are leaving. Gee, that's great. Have a good time here. Remember, no flirting with the ushers. Oh, Peter, you're such a caution. So I gave up being Spider-Man to have more time for my family and my friends, only to find they don't need me. I might as well go home and bury myself in a book. But on the way back to his pad, Pete hears, Help! Somebody help! Something's wrong. Atop that warehouse roof. And no one else around, except me. It's the Watchman. He's outnumbered, if I don't get there fast. They're too dangerously close to the edge of the roof. And this is what I was talking about earlier, in terms of we really see Peter at his core who he is. Although he thought what he really wanted was more time to study and more time for friends and family and dating, he really just couldn't fight the urge to do what's right and to be a hero. Even without his costume, he still feels the need to jump into action to help somebody in need, and that's what I've always admired about Peter Parker and Spider-Man. It doesn't matter what the odds, what the consequences, or the risks are, he's always willing to do the right thing. He had to go through a little bit of a journey in this issue to get back to that and remember that, but it seems like he's finally coming around again. We can't shut him up. There's only one thing to do. Hold it. Look. Someone's vaulting over the ledge, coming right at us. But how'd he get up here? Have to move fast. So fast that they won't recognize me. The Watchman hasn't seen me yet, and these two hoods won't get a chance to see anything. Wait. I don't know who you are, or where you came from, but you prevented a robbery. And you probably saved my life. I don't understand. How did you do it? I've got to keep in the shadows. Make my way downstairs. Can't even let him hear my voice. The Watchman. He reminds me of someone. Someone from the past. If you wait, there's bound to be a reward. All right. I won't try to stop you. You must have your reasons. Minutes later. Well, I did it. After all my pledges, all my big plans, I reverted to type at the first chance I got. And yet, how could I have done anything else? A man's very life was in danger. I seem to remember feeling this way once before. When was it? Of course, now I know. That's why the Watchman seemed so familiar. Uncle Ben, he reminded me of my Uncle Ben. How could I have forgotten? It seems like only yesterday now. Aunt May and Uncle Ben, the only family that I ever knew. They were the greatest folks that anyone could have. Kind, loving, generous. I'll never forget Uncle Ben saving for months to buy me my first microscope. Then, when I had the lab accident, which gave me my Spider-Man powers, I just became a costumed adventurer for kicks, and the money I thought it would bring in. I hoped I'd be able to pay Uncle Ben back for at least a fraction of what I owed him. And when it came to chasing criminals, I was more than willing to let George do it. Even when I was yelled at for not even trying to stop a fleeing burglar, I shrugged it off. After all, it wasn't any of my business. Or so I thought. Until I learned that the burglar had actually committed a murder, and his victim had been Uncle Ben. That was the turning point. That's when I became Spider-Man. For real. One of the first victories in my crime-busting career came a short time later when I cornered an armed robber. even with his gun, he was no match for my spider powers, and I dusted him off fast and easy. But a minute later, I got the next great surprise of my life. It's him. He's the one who killed Uncle Ben. And then I was suddenly hit by the shocking realization which had haunted me from that moment on. I had a chance to stop him when he ran past me that day, and I didn't. But if only I had done so, Uncle Ben would be alive today. Now, at last, it's all crystal clear to me once more. I can never renounce my Spider-Man identity. I can never fail to use the powers which a mysterious destiny has seen fit to give me. No matter how unbearable the burden may be, no matter how great my personal sacrifice, I can never permit one innocent being to come to harm because Spider-Man failed to act. And I swear that I never will. While at the palatial headquarters of the cold-blooded Kingpin, we find... Ever hear of the big man, mister? You're looking at him. I ran the rackets in this town before Spider-Man put me on ice. But the web-slinger's gone now, so I'm aiming to run things again. I remember you, Foswell. I thought you had gone straight. So did I. But I can't stand by and watch someone else pick up where I left off. If anyone's gonna organize the mobs, it's gotta be me. I've got the guts, the experience, and the savvy. But I'm not greedy. I'm willing to share the take. I can use a man like you as one of my lieutenants. Well, what do you say? You witless fool! You have the temerity to address the Kingpin like that? You dare offer me the position of your lieutenant? I could buy and sell you 100 times a day. Hey, take it easy, Kingpin. I didn't walk in here unprepared. Naturally, my electronic scanner instantly spotted the gun you have hidden in your hat. The gun which I can easily obliterate in a single blast, along with the hat itself. A disintegrator beam built into your cane. If I hadn't leaped aside... Put Mr. Foswell on ice for a while. He may prove useful to us later on. Hold it. Listen to me. You're making a big mistake. The Kingpin does not make mistakes. So, I don't ever remember Kingpin having some kind of a laser or let alone a disintegrator in his cane before. Maybe that's just me. I'm not sure, but I don't ever remember seeing that in really any media before I read this. Anyway. And in another section of town, a silent, shadowy figure grimly scales the sheer, steep wall of the Daily Bugle building. It still has to be here. It has to. For once, I'm in luck. Jameson's own hatred of me wouldn't let him give up that costume. Now, if I can just move fast enough. Then, not long afterwards... Hey! How come my door's unlocked? I'll snap on the light and yell, you! Hi, Chuckles. I thought you were dead, or at least mortally wounded somewhere. Sorry to disappoint you. I was out recruiting. Recruiting? You heard me. I'm signing up volunteers. I'm gonna fill the whole city with Spider-Men. Awfully sorry about the retractions you'll have to print in your paper. But I guess you're used to that by now. He's back. He's still alive. And more rotten than ever. Oh, no, no, no! By the way, next time I leave my costume, the least you can do is have it dry cleaned. Well, see you around, fun friend. And now Spidey's back in action. And as far as the world's concerned, they better believe it. Continued next issue, and how. Well, that brings us to the end of, again, one of my favorite issues of Amazing Spider-Man, number 50. This story does continue on in the Amazing Spider-Man issue number 51, and the story concludes in Amazing Spider-Man number 52. Maybe we'll get around to reading it one day, but if not, I at least encourage you all to go out and maybe try to find a copy. It'll be a little pricey and difficult considering how old they are and rare they are. You can also find it in multiple digital outlets, but if not, I'll come back around to it one day after I get some other stories told with across some other characters and other publishers as well. I want to try and be as well-rounded as we can here on the channel. But I hope you all enjoyed this as much as I did the first time I read it, and every time I've read it since, including now. I really had a great time. Well, that's the end of our story for today, everybody. I appreciate you dropping in and hanging around for our first read-along ever, and I hope that you'll come back. If you have any questions or comments, whether it's about this particular issue, or if you have any suggestions or recommendations that you'd like to drop in the comments section as well, you can. I really appreciate you all stopping by, especially with this being the first video and all. I know it's not perfect, and I'm sure there's things I could work on, but I appreciate you coming by and checking it out anyway, and being here for the long haul, hopefully. Before you go, I really would appreciate it if you just like this video and subscribe to the channel. This is, as I said in my welcome video, a pet project of mine, just doing this channel, but I definitely would like to get enough traction and traffic through here, as long as everybody likes the content that we're doing, to kind of grow this channel out and be able to do this more frequently and more often. I don't really know exactly the rate at which I'll be putting out videos just yet, but I plan to at least be putting out 2 a month to start. Hopefully I can have the bandwidth for more, but with being somebody with a full-time job and a family, and I cherish my time with my kids and my wife and everything, I'm gonna do what I can. But I really appreciate you all coming by and at least giving me a try. Until then, I hope you all take care.
Thanks for joining, hope you had fun with Comix Dad. Today's adventure is done, but don't worry, we'll meet again with new tales to share, my friend.